Hi everyone, I go by the name Gray and I'm currently a self-taught artist with big art dreams. As you can see by the title, I started a webtoon! Woo! I think 2 years ago I attempted to do the same thing and that resulted in a failure because I was too stuck on my fundamentals and making the drawings too complicated. But now, after I've developed my skills more for maybe around 1 more year or 1.5 more years, I took on the challenge once more, and I have so far essentially completed the first episode of my webtoon. The good thing about this one is that I don't plan it to be very long. It's just going to be a short story for about 2 to 3 episodes. The maximum panels would maybe be around 30 or maybe 40 panels per episode, depending on how you count it. So that's a bit of what I have done and am doing. Webtoons has almost always been in the back of my mind. I've been a long time reader of manga and then later webtoons, so I've encountered different styles, amazing stories, and amazing art and artists. So I'm finally checking off that part of the bucket list to make a webtoon, and if everything goes well, maybe I can make more in the future. Okay, so in this video, what I really want to do is just, for one, casually update you guys about what I've been doing, my goals, and my line art and coloring process for these specific panels that you will see in this video. The episode in total took about, I would like to say, around 1.5 to 2 months. First, I wrote out the script, then I did the storyboard for the first episode. After that, I roughed it out in Clip Studio Paint, added construction drawing, line art, and then colors, and then rendering, and the texts, the SFX, and all that. So that's a brief overview of the process I took. So I started in May, and while I was doing it, I was kind of disappointed with how slow of a progress I took, because when you hear of webtoon artists, at least those from Korea, they can produce 50 to maybe 80 or 80 plus panels per week. Definitely they probably had assistants or they worked as a group, but at least for me, I felt like I wished I could match that pace a little if they were working as an individual. And I would imagine if I did half of that amount, maybe 40 panels or maybe 25 panels per week, that would be a good pace. But opposed to 1 week of making around 35 panels for the first episode, I took 1.5 months at least. It's okay. It's my first official episode. At least I started, and I believe the process will be easier since I've worked on so many drawings, so I have a pretty good idea of my own reliable process now. And you might ask, why the rush? Why do I feel the need to be as relatively competitive as those Korean webtoon artists? Well, the reason why I started this webtoon, a big reason is because there was a contest that was going on, which is the Tapas and Clip Studio Paint contest. They hosted the Global Comic Awards event, and there were prizes, there was money, so I was thinking, okay, why not take this chance to be motivated and grind out something that can get in the eye of potential publishers. Yeah, that was a big reason why I started this visual story. So the theme of the contest was The Last Train. I came up with an idea very fast. I wanted to tell a story of a father and daughter and focus on their relationship dynamic. Especially, I wanted to delve into the concept of time. One big inspiration is how I hear maybe from a video or some videos how old people, when they're looking back at their life, they mention some regrets, and I wanted to really explore that concept in this story. So that's a little bit of the background of my webtoon short story. The setting is somewhat in the early 1900s, the Edwardian period. The environment is like kind of similar to London. I honestly did not research too much into that period, but I wanted to have some historical grounding, but not be super accurate because it's not as important for the story. The father is a count, and his name is Count Winter Arun Rain. And then his daughter is Odelet something something. I forgot the name. They are a somewhat low-tier noble family. Part of the story kind of illustrates that struggle of the social dynamic you have between commoners, nobles, high-tier nobles, low-tier nobles, and royalty. Yeah, so I hope that kind of gives you guys more of a description of what my short story will be and what it will be like. I think the father and daughter trope is pretty familiar to Webtoon readers, and I hope you guys will look forward to the story. Okay, let me finally talk with you guys about my process for these panels on screen. The main thing that is really important before the line art is establishing the perspective and volume of each character in the construction phase. That's one important phase before the line art, and before that phase, I think it will make it easier if you have a good idea about the value design of each panel. I think that works really well for me when I'm storyboarding. So when I storyboard, I don't really rough out the storyboard using just a white sheet of paper and a pencil. I guess I rough out a grayscale version of that panel roughly. It gives me more of the feeling behind each panel. So the construction phase. Almost for every human that I have in this webtoon, I try my best to draw a quote-unquote mannequin version of them because that really helps me understand their 3D form and be able to establish what they will look like in perspective. Thankfully, I had the proportions of each important character roughed out in a character sheet, so the daughter, Odelet, is 5 heads tall, and I can always refer to that and try to remember that when I sketch out that character in the panels. The reason why she is 5 heads tall is because I actually learned from a course I took online, specifically from Coloso. Coloso and the artist who had a course on that site. She said that having a 1:5 ratio when creating a character or an object will emphasize the cuteness of that thing. And as opposed to the 1:8 ratio, if a character is 8 heads tall, the character would give off a more elegant feel. So Count Winter is around 8 heads tall, and probably a little bit more than that. So before the line art process, I was making sure I establish all those things in general. When I was doing the line art, I'm pretty sure that I almost always had a specific webtoon artist's work beside me to always refer to. I'm really a fan of her work. Her name is Chu Hye-yeon and is the artist behind a popular webtoon called Mother's Contract Marriage in English. Her work is so mind-blowing, especially for a webtoon. And even if it wasn't a webtoon, each panel, a lot of her panels at least, is worthy to be its own illustration. When I was doing liner, I'm pretty sure I had her work beside me. What she does is somewhat like, especially for the hair, she makes the hair strands more detailed and specific around the face. If the hair is long, like my character, I can reduce the details when they're too far away from the face, and that just helps concentrate the viewer's attention to the focal point, which is the face. So that was my thought process when doing the line art. Shape language is also very important when I try drawing. I think you can use that in a very stylistic way. So for this comic, And in general, in my art style, I like rounded line work. If you guys know the manga artist Boichi, who made Sunken Rock, the manga for example, he uses rounded line work instead of sharp angular line work. So I used that in my webtoon. I tried to maintain that throughout this webtoon episode with that rounded style. I hope you guys can start to see some interesting but graphic shapes that help frame each character in the panels. One thing I wished I could have paid more attention to was the line weight. I didn't really have the lighting direction as established when I was making the storyboard, and maybe that contributed to some more ambiguity when I was doing the line art, because if I knew where the light was coming from, I could make the lines that are opposite the light more darker, as if depicting the shadow. But I think it's okay, because since the lines that I do are thin, it does not affect the picture as much as a whole, I think. So I think I can give myself a pass. Yeah, okay. So that was some of my thoughts behind the line art. Other than the technical stuff, it's funny how before I couldn't even imagine myself drawing different aged characters without so much difficulty. It was not as difficult as I imagined, which is really good and really great, because before I'll be like, nah, I really like parent-child comics, but draw them? Nah, bro. Too hard, too difficult. But actually, when you draw kids, I think proportions play a big role, at least when you're drawing similar to an anime style. It makes sense, right? The heads takes up more in relation to their body. For example, for Odalette, the daughter in the story, her femur, I shouldn't say femur, but her upper leg is only about 1 head long, as opposed to 2 heads long for a typical normal adult human. And her rib cage, instead of 1.5 heads long, it's only 1 head long. So I think when you're drawing children as opposed to adults, it would be good to think about their head size relation to their body, if that makes sense. After learning art by myself since 2022, I slowly but surely really came to realization that I'm a line art person. I think the painterly form of art is great to look at too, but for me, I wanted a less stuffy feeling, for lack of a better word. I like how line art helps make artwork look more clean or look more defined, I guess. I think line art, it feels less stacked, and when it's less stacked, to me it feels less heavy and more lightweight. I really want to keep that feeling when I make art. So yeah. So because I know I like line art so much in art, I want to perfect it more. Like, if I could get to the level of the artist behind Gosu, another webtoon, with exceptional art, man, that would be the dream. Let me move on to the coloring process behind these webtoon panels. So first, I went in and blocked out the base colors of each panel, and after that, I decided to turn it all off and just solely focus on creating the light and shadow shapes for each artwork. This part was especially frustrating because I thought it wouldn't look really good in the recording if I just start drawing the light and the shadow. That aside, I was looking forward to coloring these panels, but also for the first half of the coloring process, I was really not satisfied with my work. I didn't like how it looked, but this is just another take on testifying that you had to sometimes trust the process, because at the end, I think these panels turned out pretty well. 2 really important things when you start coloring is making sure you take care of the focal points first and establishing strong values So just like in a liner, like how I focused on the details around the face, when I started adding logo colors over the base colors, a lot of the more saturated hues are concentrated around the face. As for values, it's always in the back of my head to make sure that I don't increase my values too much. For example, I learned that it's probably best to keep it around 5 for clarity. Getting the values is so important, or at least checking your values would be really good, because I learned that no matter how well you render after and how much details you do after, it will still look off if your values are off. So after taking care of those stuff, the eyes, that was the main feature for the character. Actually, only the daughter, who is Odalette. Since her father is showing his side view, I couldn't really add detail into his eyes, but eyes in my style, I feel, is very important to me. So I made sure to take care of that part really well, at least decently. Prior to this, I actually watched a really helpful YouTube tutorial on eyes. If you like the webtoon, anime, manga style, I think that video is worth watching. And also if you love detailed eyes. It really gave a logical and technical explanation behind why anime or manga or webtoon artists add so many sparkles and variations in the eyes, and it still looks good. I found out that subsurface scattering, reflections, how to create a jewel-like effect in the eyes. That video helped me understand the reasoning behind what Eastern artists do. Also me referring to Chu Hye-yeon. I feel like I butchered that name. Wait, how do you say her name? Chu Hye-yeon. Her name, yeah, Chu Hye-yeon, the artist I mentioned before. The way she draws eyes is so mind-blowing. I cannot. It's really beautiful to look at, and her art is a really big inspiration to me. I think I veered off track. But yeah, eyes. I was talking about eyes. I figured to create that jewel-like effect, using the line art itself to create that was part of what I did for the eyes. It took a while to get it right. There were a number of panels that I tried practicing the eyes prior to these panels, and I think I got the process right better for these panels. I don't know if you guys like to hear so much of the technical stuff behind my drawings. I don't want to bombard you guys. If you guys don't like it, please let me know if you would like. Glow dodge and overlay were my friends for this episode, and probably for all episodes, because it served as a faster solution while I was making my webtoon episode. And because there was a deadline, which was actually yesterday when I record this, the deadline was yesterday, June 30th, so I was rushing towards the end, like towards the last few days I had left. I tried to pull all-nighters. I stayed up, tried to work as efficiently and fast as I could without deriving the artwork from quality, if that makes sense. Yeah, a deadline really helps you if you're a slow artist. Go figure. If you're a slow artist like me, definitely sitting for hours on end didn't feel as painful, for lack of a better word, when there was a deadline coming. Like, time just goes by without you knowing sometimes, because you're like focused and trying to get something done. But man, that part of my body was sore. Like, I probably don't recommend sitting for hours on end. Definitely every hour if you can. If you work digitally, it's better to rest your eyes, stare at something 10 plus feet away, look at grass, get up, stretch, walk around. But I digress. The eyes were really the most important part of the rendering, I would say, when I was drawing in my style. I think adding highlights to the hair really bring the artwork to another level. Textures. I found out that textures, if you can see the hatching behind the first panel in this video and the kind of smoke-like effect behind the characters, it was part of the assets in Clip Studio Paint, and I think that also brings the work to another level by emphasizing a certain emotion better. Oh yeah, I forgot. I said glow dodge and color dodge were my friends, but I don't remember if I explained why. So it emphasized highlights in the hair, for example, and the highlights in the eyes. It just creates a higher contrast that if I didn't use glow dodge, I might not have dared to create if I was just drawing in a normal layer. Honestly, it provided a quick solution, especially because of the due date. It created a synchronous depiction of light throughout my whole piece in a way, and overlay I used on the petals so that they glowed more and looked more fancy. I don't know, I feel like I'm giving away all my secrets. Please like my video if it helps you. It takes pretty long to make these videos. I edit so much of my voiceover actually because I have a stuttering problem, I stutter too much and I pause too much because I have to think about what to say. But I think it has gotten a little better these days. A video would take like 2 weeks even to completely finish. Yeah. One more tip is that there are some free classes on Coloso. Not sponsored, even though I wish, but that site has been really helpful to me because it allowed me to learn from artists that are not really accessible because Eastern artists, they speak another language and they're so far away. And Coloso offers courses from Korean artists, even Japanese artists. Since I like Eastern art so much, this site really helped me as a self-taught artist. There are some free classes if you sign up, and one of those free classes really helped me know how to render the hair, so if you're interested, go visit that site. Not sponsored, even though I sound like an ad. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I hope you all have a great day. Happy drawing, everyone!